So just yesterday, we finally got the long-awaited September Nintendo Direct that a lot of fans were even thinking we would not see at all, and Nintendo did deliver a large 40-minute presentation focusing on numerous Switch titles. And while I did upload a live reaction video yesterday, in today's video, I want to break down these announcements, share any news or information that we have updates around since Nintendo has unveiled these games, and talk about this new NSO upgrade that we are receiving in October. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, we are covering Nintendo Direct today, and really all of the major announcements that we saw at yesterday's event. As if you haven't watched the live reaction video, you can tell that I was definitely hyped for this. I mean, you guys have to keep in mind that Nintendo didn't have to put on a Direct, even though we expected them to, and they did. And I think that this was a fantastic showcase, all things considered. Now, I know that from reading some of the comments, not everybody felt that way, but I certainly did, considering that we got the major upgrades to NSO, which was definitely the highlight for me. If you guys don't already know, which you should if you've been on the channel for a while, I'm a huge hardcore Zelda fan, and walking away from this event, I'm now going to have the ability to play Ocarina of Time on the N64 on the Nintendo Switch, either docked or handheld, and I think that's fantastic news. And then we also got confirmation that we're going to get Majora's Mask as well. So there were a lot of highlights from this event for me personally. And you know, if you weren't a fan of the classic consoles, I can see how there's not like these game-breaking announcements that blew everybody away, but I think that for considering what we saw at E3 and then to follow it up with another 40-minute presentation like they did this time, it is overall a win in my book. But to kind of break down and start off the play-by-play of how Nintendo unveiled these new games and additions to the Nintendo Switch, we have to start off with how the event opened, which was what is being described as a massive DLC update expansion for Monster Hunter Rise, and this is called Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. We got a quick little hype trailer. The new dragon that's featured in this looks like absolutely incredible, and it definitely does a good job of giving me a reason to actually go through and play through Monster Hunter Rise, because I actually own the game but have not played it yet on my Nintendo Switch, if you guys can believe that. So at least now that I know there's a huge expansion coming, that's going to be another reason that I can dive into that game, hopefully get through my initial first playthrough before this does release, and it is slated for a summer 2022 release. And so for a lot of fans, I mean, Monster Hunter Rise sold incredibly well, and I've seen a lot of new hardcore Monster Hunter fans since this has debuted on the Nintendo Switch, and I think that this is definitely great news for them. And obviously Capcom is going to want to capitalize on the momentum with the audience that they have built in Monster Hunter Rise. So this was a good way to open up the Direct. It was an interesting one. I really was predicting that we were going to get the Smash character for the opening of the Direct, as we've just historically seen Nintendo do that a lot. So obviously it was not that, but it was a good, you know, starting off the tone strong with what we were going to be seeing from the Direct. And then from there, we got the very expected Mario Party Superstars overview trailer, which is just getting us more ready for this game. It does appear like there's now a list of all the mini games that are even included that you guys can go and look at online. And you know what I'm really pumped about this title for the most is simply the fact that they are bringing back the classic boards and classic mini games, which should in theory mean that they're not all motion-based controls, as you know, that's kind of when I started to lose my interest in Mario Party, even playing with friends I've grown up with my entire life. We don't play the ones that are out on the Wii and forward near as much. Even Super Mario Party, which I do think is a great title, I don't play that much because you have to play with a Joy-Con turned sideways, and you have to do all the different motion style gaming mechanics that they have. And while that's fun for a game or two here or there, I still personally have nostalgia for the more traditional button style controls, as that's just what I grew up with, and that's still what I enjoy to this day. So this Mario Party Superstars trailer just did nothing but get me more hyped for the release of this game, and I will absolutely be picking this up as a fun party game on day one when it does release on October 29th. Now, the next couple games we saw, I'm going to kind of just really briefly say the titles of, so you guys know them in case you didn't watch the Direct itself, but both of these games really did nothing for me. And the first one is a RPG card game called Voice of the Cards. It is a Square Enix title. I can see how if you're a hardcore, like, competitive card player, maybe this would be a game for you. But, you know, to me, I just don't, whenever it's just flipping over cards and attacking each other RPG style with only seeing the deck of cards that's being played in front of you, it does nothing to really get me excited. We then had Disco Elysium, which is the same thing. I don't even know like really what to say about this game, other than it has an interesting art style, I guess you could say, and a different like graphic perspective. Like the overhead view that they were showing was kind of interesting, but in all reality, I don't see myself even checking this out on the eShop at all. So I will, skip along to the next announcement after that. which was then Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity update, which we did know we were going to probably see this talked about, as it is out in late October. And you know, I wish I was more into the Hyrule Warriors games. As a Zelda fan, there's definitely some great lore and story moments that are featured in these Hyrule Warrior games, but it's just not for me as far as my overall playstyle. I like hack and slash games, but for some reason the warrior style games just never tend to keep me plugged in long enough to really get all the highlights of the story and everything. And I know there's a lot of fans out there that are enjoying it. Just personally for me, it's not a big one for me to go back to. If I find out there's some kind of like major story connection that we need to know about in terms of like Breath of the Wild 2 stuff, or setting up more of the Age of Calamity style story that might be worth me going back and picking up this DLC and actually playing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity again, I certainly will. But for fans of the franchise, this is going to be a nice addition that will be out on October 29th. Now, the next game that was announced is one that's actually kind of funny to me, and to be honest, it looks good, but it is a Chocobo kart racer game that looks very close to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And you know, it's just one of those funny things when I see other companies put out essentially like a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe type of clone just to get it on the market, because they see what Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is continuing to sell and how it's continuing to perform, which is part of my frustration, and it's why we're not getting any kind of Mario Kart 9 announcements. But you know what, regardless, as long as it continues to sell, Nintendo will probably hold off on releasing a sequel until they start to see those sales dwindle down. But this Chocobo kart racer will be on the market for anybody that's interesting. Like I said, it does look like graphically and just the overall gameplay mechanics are extremely close to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which does mean it's probably going to be a lot of fun, especially if you have nostalgia for any of the characters in the lineup in there. I do think that this would be one that's going to be interesting for certain fans. I will continue to actually hold off on buying any new kart racers until it is a new Mario Kart title myself, but I do think that this will be one that is fun for fans of the Square Enix characters that will be in the lineup of this Chocobo kart racer. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I was definitely expecting the final Smash character DLC announcement to be at this event, but at least we do have the date and we can mark it on our calendars right now on what to expect, as on October 5th, we will have a Sakurai Presents, and it is being claimed that it is the final one, and Sakurai has said it himself. Who knows if he goes back on his word eventually one day in the future and says, I actually want to do a Fighter Pack Volume 3, but for the time being, we do know that this will wrap up the entire Smash Ultimate character roster, and them giving it its kind of final media push with its own Sakurai Presents to the final send-off of this character does make me feel like it's going to be a super hype announcement. And I think it's going to be something that, you know, gets the internet talking, and they're going to give it its own spotlight, because, you know, historically we see a Nintendo Direct and maybe a surprise character like Banjo and Kazooie comes out and it almost overtakes the spotlight of the other announcements at the Direct. And I think it's very interesting to see Nintendo really want to slot this into its own time slot and give it its own window to breathe. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below who you think it is and who you think the final character is going to be. But I will definitely have my reminder set for October 5th to tune into the final Sakurai Presents. Now, from there, we got what I would call the first major announcement from this Nintendo Direct, and that is the fact that we are getting a new, I would call it Mario Odyssey style 3D Kirby game, and I think that this is what the series needs. We had reports and rumors that, you know, obviously there was a Kirby in development. It really wasn't even rumors, because it was the development studio talking about the next installment, saying that it would be a new direction for Kirby and kind of the evolution of the franchise. And we saw that featured here, and I gotta say, halfway through the trailer, I started to get very hyped for this game. When I saw, you know, Kirby obviously using the classical swallow enemies and fight bosses with the abilities in a 3D open world kind of layout, I got very excited. And we don't know if it's going to be like level by level or if it's going to be open world connected. At least to my knowledge at this point, I don't think we have that information out there, but I will tell you guys that this is going to be one that I'm excited to see how the gameplay works and how the actual reviews come out of the game. But I will definitely be picking it up day one, as I have super nostalgia for Kirby games, especially back on the N64, which we'll talk about later because we're getting one of those in the N64 lineup. But I definitely am excited for this Kirby title, and I do think that, you know, it's a needed change for the franchise, as Star Allies was just one that, you know, I played for a while and didn't even finish the game entirely. Like, it's kind of fun to play if you got 4 friends together, but it's just like overly simplistic and easy in my opinion, and it's kind of more of the same when it comes to the traditional Kirby franchise formula. And I think that this 3D open environment, open exploration style of Kirby game will be way more welcome amongst fans. I do personally hope that they're going to add in some kind of difficulty to this game, because I know that Kirby is sometimes marketed towards the younger players, which, you know, that typically means it's going to be an easy enough game. But so similar to Mario Odyssey, if you can do enough creative things and enough, you know, really intense boss battles, I still get super pumped up for these type of titles. So this will be one that I'm watching for the official release, but it is slated for a spring 2022 release. And this is really good news in my opinion, because we got the first trailer here in September, and we can already look forward to spring of 2022 for the title's official release to hit the market. But I would love to hear from you guys in the comments what you personally thought about the trailer we saw with this new 3D Kirby, and if you were going to be interested in picking this up day one or not. Now, next up, we got to briefly talk about Animal Crossing, and I'm not the biggest Animal Crossing fan out there. However, this game has a huge user base and huge installment base that has been waiting for some kind of an update, as it's sold over 30 million plus copies and is still going strong. And one thing I do love about Nintendo and how they are continuing to support this game is the fact that all these updates that come out over the course of time are actually free. So people who, you know, have stayed on it the whole time or just kind of played off and on since its release back in March of 2020, you're still just getting these updates added into Animal Crossing at no additional cost to you. And I think that that's a really exciting thing. Now, I don't know that they won't announce some kind of paid DLC that comes along with this, but regardless of what it is, how they've typically updated the game is just free updates as they go, which is a very cool thing for the Animal Crossing fans out there. And you will be getting your own separate Animal Crossing Direct, and it is in October, which we do not know the exact time window and the exact dates just yet, but it'll probably most likely be towards the end of October, I would think, because, you know, we're getting that Sakurai Presents at the beginning of October, and I think Nintendo knows what they have with the Animal Crossing community, and they'll probably block out its own little space with no other announcements around it for the Animal Crossing Direct. Now, what I'm going to say next might be immediately contradictory to what I was just saying about Animal Crossing, but one of the things that I do not like about the next thing we're going to talk about is Mario Golf Super Rush free updates, which it's cool that we're getting new content, but, you know, this game released so recently that it feels like Nintendo is doing some kind of new strategy where they release these Mario themed sports games, especially with very light content, and then over the course of time, to try to entice players to keep playing them, they kind of drip feed content for free updates as they go. And while it's cool to see, you know, a game like Animal Crossing that's been out for a long time get a lot of free updates that are spread out over the course of time, I do think that with Mario Golf Super Rush, it's a little bit different because we just saw the game released the last few months ago. And, you know, there's already been one update where we got a new character and course added in. And this update will actually add Koopa and Ninja, and you're going to get 2 courses added in. And so as somebody who, you know, wanted to play that game in its entirety at its release, you know, for me personally, I am not a fan of having to go back in and check out these updates. I would rather have the content all there at once, even if it needed to be held back for 1 month for whatever reason, to at least, you know, put out the game with a decent amount of content at release. But that's at least my stance on it. So I'm not super into this, but I probably will, you know, I'll probably wait for a few more updates and then I'll try to go back through and play Mario Golf Super Rush again, especially the multiplayer, which is like definitely the highlight of that game for me. But this one, I don't have a whole lot else to say on, other than, you know, I hope that Nintendo doesn't do this with all major sports games, especially the Mario titles that we've seen them do it so far. Now, next we got some kind of Disney 3DS like combo pack port / new title. I don't even know what to say about this one, so I'm really just going to skip over it, as it did nothing for me. But then we also had the big announcement of, at least I would call it a big announcement, of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, as that is definitely one of the all-time best fan favorite Star Wars games, and we do know that we're getting a full-on remake of that game, as it was showcased at the PlayStation 5 event. So that kind of dwindles down some of the hype around that announcement, for the fact that you're just going to be getting the base version of Knights of the Old Republic. Whether or not that means there will be some kind of Switch port of the actual remake, that remains to be seen, but I'm assuming that it's going to be very high when it comes to the demand for graphics performance, and I don't know that something like a Knights of the Old Republic remake will run well on the Switch unless it's something like a cloud port, which we did get another cloud announcement that we're going to talk about in a second at this event as well. But this one, for me, I will at least have, you know, the ability to go in and play the classic Knights of the Old Republic either in docked or handheld, and I do love to see it make its debut on the Switch. We then got the Dying Light 2 announcement for the Nintendo Switch, which is a cloud version of this game. And, you know, that's going to be an interesting one to see, because unless if you have a super fast, low latency internet connection, I really don't think that cloud technology, as far as running games smoothly on the Switch, is quite there yet. I mean, maybe you guys have had a different experience, but everything that I've seen people talk about, I haven't personally played one myself, but it does seem like there's still latency when it comes to cloud ports, and they definitely don't run as smooth as something like a native port. But, you know, if you haven't played the first Dying Light, you are also going to get that in a native port, surprisingly enough. So I guess the first one, it can run fine on the Nintendo Switch. The second one, you're going to have to go with the cloud port, but they did do a quick overview trailer of both of those titles kind of, coming out together. And it was interesting to me that they showed Dying Light 2 first, and then they were like, oh, and even sooner than when that comes out, you'll be able to play the first Dying Light, which they're calling the Platinum Edition, on the Switch, I think in this October, if I'm not mistaken. So for Dying Light fans out there, it's at least good news all around for the Nintendo Switch versions of these games. Now, next up, we got a very exciting announcement, and that is another Square Enix title that will be coming to the Nintendo Switch, and that is Triangle Strategy. And if you guys haven't seen the trailer for the game, just go look at it. Look at how beautiful it looks. If you grew up in the SNES or Sega Genesis era like I did, you probably have a lot of nostalgia for that pixel art look, and they are pulling that off, but adding in like awesome graphical lighting effects and just the way that the attacks look, the way that everything is animated, but it is all still pixel art based, is very exciting. And I am going to be excited to check out this game, which you can do with the announcement of a free demo. And I can't remember exactly when that launches off the top of my head, but I do know that the game launches actually on March 4th of 2022, so we will not have to wait too much longer to actually play through this entire experience on our Nintendo Switch. And I do think that this is a very welcome addition to the platform, and one that I will be keeping my eyes on as we get closer to its release. Now from there, of course, we had to have Nintendo push Metroid Dread again, as they are just continuing the hype train with this game, as we are so close to October 8th. It's right around the corner, and I couldn't be more pumped for this title to actually be released. And of course, there's the big discussion around, is Nintendo showing us too much of this game? And I know there's a lot of fans that do feel like they are, but again, if you have seen my other videos, you know that I'm in the camp that, the Metroid game is going to be the experience itself, knowing that you get different missile weapon upgrades and different abilities, and you know that there's different themes of different parts of the map. That's really nothing new if you're a hardcore Metroid fan, as we know that it's going to kind of be laid out like that. And you could argue they've, spoiled some bosses here and there, but I still could not be more pumped for this game. And of course, we got a couple new, sections of actual new gameplay, and then a big mashup of like some stuff that we've seen overall before, and then them even marketing their Metroid Dread volume editions that they've been posting up weekly or bi-weekly. I don't even know what kind of schedule they're sticking to with that, but I love to see the continued push for Metroid Dread. Can't wait for October 8th, and this just did a good job of reminding us that it's right around the corner. Now from there, we have to talk about what I would say is the highlight of the show for me, and that is the fact that we are getting Nintendo Switch Online upgrades. Yes, it is going to come with an additional pricing tier, and I want to make a future video discussing how you guys feel about that. But for right now, let's focus on the positive, and that is the fact that we are actually getting Nintendo 64 support, and surprise out of left field, Sega Genesis support. And guess what? Nintendo's going to sell you the actual controllers from the original versions of those consoles, but of course wirelessly with USB-C ports to bring them into the modern era to actually be able to play those games. And for somebody who grew up in the Genesis versus SNES war, I mean, Sega used to run commercials saying that Sega does what Nintendo don't, and it's just so funny to now see Nintendo actually sell a Sega Genesis branded controller. So I think for the long-term fans out there, this was a very welcome announcement. They opened up the N64 announcement with Ocarina of Time, of course, that classic iconic start menu startup theme. And I just couldn't be more hyped that they're debuting the N64 library with this major N64 pivotal classic, really a pivotal classic for the entirety of 3D games, you could argue easily. And then surprise, we're also getting Mario 64. We're gonna get Yoshi Story, Winback, Mario Tennis, Mario Kart 64, and Star Fox 64 with online play, mind you. So you can now play your friends online on these classic N64 titles, and I just couldn't be more hyped overall as a long-term Nintendo fan to see these incredible library of games come to the Nintendo Switch. And I know some fans wanted like the virtual console model, but I gotta tell you, if Nintendo continues to roll forward with Nintendo Switch Online and continue to bring more consoles and just make that subscription that much more enticing, it would be nice for the future if we continue to see additions, and maybe by time we get to like the next gen Switch, whatever that might be, we might be talking about adding in a GameCube library with a GameCube wireless controller. So if you guys can imagine Nintendo continuing to push all this forward and be future-proof to where your games are not locked to the previous gen console, I think it's a very exciting prospect. And while there's no, official announcement that they'll do that, I just think that this is a good direction for them to go, to continue to support the classic consoles and continue to add them into Nintendo Switch Online, And then the Sega Genesis lineup of games is also just out of the gate super strong, as you have Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra, Dr. Robotnik, Mean Bean Machine, Echo the Dolphin, don't care about that at all. We got Golden Axe, Gunstar Heroes, which is actually a super expensive game to track down if you want the physical copy, and I have like some fantastic memories of playing through Gunstar Heroes. It's one of the best shooter co-op games in my opinion to go through and play. You also had Musha, you have Phantasy Star 4, Ristar, Shining Force, Shinobi 3, Sonic 2, Streets of Rage, and Strider, and there's even a lot of rumors that we're going to get a ton more Sega Genesis added into this library of games. So, you know, I'm back into being bought into, here, take my money, Nintendo, whatever the new subscription tier is going to be. I will be excited to be along with on the ride and see the future games that we're going to get announced, as they even dropped some bombs saying that we're going to get Majora's Mask around the corner. We're even going to get Banjo and Kazooie around the corner, and that opens up an entire another conversation, because that means that Nintendo has effectively negotiated a deal with Microsoft to be able to have rare titles on this N64 Nintendo Switch online service, which means, you know, maybe one day there's GoldenEye. There's a lot of licensing issues around that, but you could at least talk about Perfect Dark, the other Banjo games, Donkey Kong 64, Diddy Kong Racing. Like, imagine Diddy Kong Racing with online support against your friends. I mean, this is just a really exciting new can of worms that has been opened with this announcement, especially considering that we see a rare title included, as I kind of personally thought that that would be the forbidden fruit of the console. Like, we would never see any of those titles since Microsoft now owns Rareware. So this was a huge one for me. I couldn't be more excited to see the future details that come out, and we will at some point get an announcement separate from this event, obviously, that teaches us what the pricing tier will be and unveils all of that. And I'm sure that they're going to continue to support like either the annual model at a discount, or, you know, the month by month to pay a little bit more. But I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below what your overall feelings were from this announcement, and if it's really worth the upgrade that we know we're going to see in pricing when it comes to these NSO Classic consoles. So make sure you share your thoughts in the comments on that down below. Now, just when I was trying to calm myself down from all of those exciting NSO announcements, we got the Shadow Drop announcement of the Castlevania Collection Pack, which also includes Dracula X, which I did not expect to be included in this collection, but it's 20 bucks. It's live on the eShop. I got to figure out how to get the thing physically. I don't know if Limited Run Games will probably do a physical version of it, or if you guys know of any other way to get it physically, but for the time being, I'm probably just going to download it on the eShop so I can play it. In fact, I'll probably purchase it over the weekend so I can actually go through and relive these classic Castlevania titles again. And if you guys didn't notice, I'm including the background music for the Castlevania Advanced Collection in the actual video today, because I just got super nostalgic when I saw this. And, you know, of course, this was a title that we talked about on the channel that we would expect at something like a September Nintendo Direct, simply for the fact that we saw the rating board leaks happen, which are typically always a telltale sign that we're right around the corner from an announcement. And sure enough, not only was it announced, but it was shadow dropped for a same-day purchase. So that one's super exciting for me. I can't wait to get some extra time to play through these classic advanced titles when it comes to the Castlevania series, and I would love to know from you guys if you're planning on picking these up as well. Now, next up, we had ActRaiser Renaissance, and that's actually one that somehow I missed all through the SNES era. I never played the original version, and apparently it's like a huge fan classic. So, of course, this was in the days before the internet, or before I was using the internet, so I had no nostalgia or no clue from this game. And in fact, I left it out of my reaction trailer because I was just trying to figure out how I had missed this title, because it looks incredible, and the remaster that they're delivering for the Nintendo Switch version of the game looks really great to me as well. So I'll be excited to keep my eyes on this one. I don't know how I missed it the first time around, as it is definitely a fan favorite on the SNES, but let me know in the comments down below if you guys are excited for this remaster to come to the Nintendo Switch, and if you played through the original on the SNES, or if you were like me and you just missed it and it wasn't on your radar at all. So I'd love to hear from you guys on this one, on ActRaiser Renaissance, as that was another game that was just surprise shadow dropped yesterday and is already available on the eShop. Now, from there was a Deltarune update that was very quick. I don't know about Deltarune myself. I've seen people comment about it before, so maybe it's a quality title, but I don't really have anything to say on Deltarune myself right now. We then got like a really quick mashup trailer of other games with some Shin Megami Tensei 5, which it definitely, I was surprised that game didn't get a section of the Direct just to focus on that game more, as that's one of the fall titles, but it was included in that brief mashup trailer that we saw. Then we got the big announcement of the Mario Studio movie around the casting. And, you know, the problem with that is that they had Miyamoto come out on stage with a Mario shirt, which, of course, my mind as a Nintendo fan, seeing Miyamoto out on a Direct means that we're getting something Zelda or Mario, and it's probably going to be game related. And while I am super pumped to see the Mario movie, it wasn't what I originally thought he was going to be there for whenever he said, "Oh, I'm here to announce the voice actor cast of the Mario movie. So, you know, I had to kind of go from like level 11, just super hyped to see him on screen, to be like, okay, he's just giving us an update around the movie that's going to be coming out next year, which, you know, they're throwing some great money at this, obviously, because they're getting quality names and big time actors to actually play these parts. You even have Jack Black that's going to be the voice of Bowser, which I think is hilarious and a perfect fit, most likely. So I will be excited to see this movie. It wasn't, unfortunately, alongside of some super crazy Miyamoto hype announcement like a Mario Odyssey 2 or a Mario Galaxy 3 or something like that, but I'm sure that we'll see him show up with a Mario shirt again in the future to announce something major. Now from there, we got a super hype trailer for Splatoon 3 that revealed the gameplay, and it does look incredible. It looks like a really fun title. If you guys don't know, I personally myself have not played the Splatoon game, so I don't, you know, absolutely freak out whenever I see the new gameplay or anything like that, but it's definitely one that's enticing enough for me to pick up at release on the Nintendo Switch, and I do know there will be a lot of fun online multiplayer to be had for this title, so I know it's got some hardcore fans out there. I'm sorry for not being one myself, but I do think that this one looks good enough to at least hop in and experience that online multiplayer that will be super ultra competitive, and I'm sure that we will see a lot of fans continue to play for the years to come. So this is definitely good news for Splatoon fans out there, and we do know to expect that early next year in 2022. Now from there, we got the big show closer announcement, and you know, I had the hardest time figuring out what this game was when it was first shown. I was like, it's probably going to be Xenoblade Chronicles 3, as we had talked about, that's most likely about around the corner from an announcement, and for some reason my mind couldn't process that we've also talked about Bayonetta 3 not being, you know, having any kind of trailer since 2017, and sure enough, the minute that Bayonetta herself popped up on screen, it all made sense to me, and it's like, oh yeah, of course this is Bayonetta 3, and this is a great way to close the show, because fans were speculating around the fact that this game had been canceled and scrapped, or that there was just major development problems and we may not see it for years to come. So we did at least get a look at the gameplay and the world itself, and of course it looks beautiful. I'm actually a little bit worried for the performance on the Nintendo Switch, just for the simple fact is, like, you have major monster beast fighting behind you, and then you're doing your flips yourself as a small character, and that's graphically a really hard thing to pull off. So I will be excited to see the performance of this game and how much love and care Platinum Games put into making it run smoothly on the Switch, but it looks incredible from this stance. We do know it's now going to be a 2022 title. We didn't get any kind of window or anything like that, so we will have to wait and see around Bayonetta 3 on when it'll actually come out, but just getting the 2022 number is reassuring, and I'm sure I could see this being like an easy middle of the year release, something like a summer release, and that's probably why they wouldn't commit to anything like a spring or early on. But Bayonetta 3 looks incredible. We'll definitely be picking this one up day one. So I would love to hear from you guys what your thoughts were on Bayonetta 3. And really at this point in the video, I want to know all your opinions on everything we covered today. As you know, we had a lot of announcements from this Nintendo Direct, and I would love for you to actually give me a letter grade yourself. If you had to do an A, B, C, or D, what did you think of the event overall? And you know, what were some of your most hype announcements, and what were some that you were maybe, you know, sorely missing? Obviously, me as a Zelda fan, while we did get Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask original versions on the N64 available on the Switch, that was great, but we definitely didn't get those heavily rumored Wind Waker HD or Twilight Princess HD games. So I'm still holding out hope that we get them announced you know, eventually in the future, but that's definitely a little bit of a letdown if you are a hardcore Zelda fan. But like I said, guys, I want to hear from you guys on this, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you guys around Nintendo Direct. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.